Around 20% of FPL managers have still got their wildcard, half of which are pulling the trigger this week. But regardless, this is a video you've got to watch because these are the players you've got to target. This is my Game Week 12 wildcard team selection. Welcome to the Gianni YouTube show. Hope you guys are well. You're enjoying the start of the international break, of course, just around the corner. When we make wildcard teams, we start with our key cogs and then we fill in the gaps, right? So let me talk you through my thinking if I'm making a wildcard for Game Week 12. Guys, do hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of these types of videos. Hit that notification bell when you do. First up, we look at the fixture ticker, right? So if I look at the fixture ticker on my app, on my phone, Fantasy Football Scout, you can filter by selected game weeks. You can do attack versus defense. You can do difficulty. This is the ticker filtered by difficulty from Game Week 12 for the next 5 weeks. So we can see teams like Brighton and Wolves, Arsenal right at the top there. Arsenal are an interesting one. This draft will have triple Arsenal. Many of us have been selling our Arsenal players, but look, it's Forest, West Ham, Man United, Fulham, and Everton up next. I like it. So that's the ticker. Take a screen grab. Let's move on. Key cogs in the team. We start with our premiums. Erling Haaland is going to be in this team, guys. Now, many will question his inclusion off the back of not the best month, not the best 6 weeks, but he's still Erling Haaland. He's still, I think, the best captaincy option in the game more than any other, right? Of course, some weeks it's Palmer, some weeks it's Salah, some weeks it's Haaland, but Haaland will still be the go-to captain a lot. He is a lot of money. And if you go Erling Haaland, it probably means you can't have Mo Salah. For me, I would love to get both in. I do feel with drafts that have both Haaland and Salah, they just lack a little bit. They just lack a little bit of something. Like they're probably a premium short elsewhere. They would only have the 2 premium set up. This draft has 3. So Salah, with regret, isn't in this team. Now, maybe that's a big mistake. But in my actual FPL team, I've got no Salah. And I think if I was wildcarding, I'd still go with no Salah. So look, Erling Haaland is in. Cole Palmer is alongside him. Chelsea's fixtures, when we look at like the mid-November to December, the fixtures are so good. And Cole Palmer, when we're making our premium picks, we're making all of our picks. We've got to bear in mind this is the Christmas period, right? This is a ton of fixtures. This is, at times, playing Premier League Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. Now, when that's the case, you want the nailed assets that usually you can bank on for 90 minutes. And Haaland is one of those. Even when Haaland gets injured, we saw recently he played on, right? He got 90 against Bournemouth and he was clearly struggling. We've seen similar with Saka. Of course, Saka misses games, and similar with Palmer. But Palmer and Saka are both going to be in this team. So let's put Saka in as well and talk about Bukayo Saka. Because again, if we look back over the last month, we've been selling Arsenal assets. In fact, those that wildcarded in Game Week 6 all went big on Arsenal. And Saka was sort of seen as a must-have. Now, he ticks along nicely, and sure, he's a good option. But we have to bear in mind the fixtures to come, and I think this is where Saka comes into his own. Again, routes to points with all these premiums, Palmer and Saka especially, just like Mo Salah, they're on the set pieces, they're on the penalties, they play 90 minutes, they usually fit, they're the talisman for their teams. So Saka ticks that box, and he's obviously a lot cheaper than a Mo Salah. So whilst I would love Salah in this team, Palmer and Saka, I can have both of them, or I can have Salah. I can't have Salah +1 because it's too many compromises elsewhere. You're going to see I've got a slimline defence and front line already. So this is the 3-premium setup, and I feel quite confident on these 3 players. Now, my actual FPL team, I don't have Bukayo Saka, and I'll be moving to him shortly, I think. So this is our team, like 3 in at the 15. Where do we go from here? Where do we fill in the gaps, and how do we start? Well, straight away, I think of other fairly expensive players that are important to me. So let's go through them. But before we do, give a shout out to OneFootball, who sponsor today's show. OneFootball is a football app you've just got to have on your phone, guys. It's a free football app. You all, I guarantee, consume live scores in some way, shape or form, football news in some way, shape or form, and you watch video clips of goals in some way, shape or form. You can do all 3 of those things really easily on the OneFootball app. And I'm not just talking Premier League either. Champions League, I use it for Serie A a lot. OneFootball app is a must-have. Scan that QR code, click on that link in the description, and put it on your home screen of your phone. You won't be disappointed. Okay, let's fill in the gaps. I'm going to continue with Arsenal. Just had Saka in. We're going to drop Gabriel in. He is currently my only premium defender in this team. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Trent is great. I think he's perhaps not delivering always his 7 million price tag. Gabriel, we know from last season. In fact, let's just look at it, shall we? Guys, this is the defensive data from last season. This defensive data from last season shows how elite Arsenal were. Now, this is obviously a 38 game week sample. It's a very similar, it's the same manager, it's similar personnel. In fact, the squad is stronger with Calafiori, Timber fit, Moreno's addition in midfield. This was the Arsenal defence last season that blew everyone out the water from goals conceded, XG conceded, clean sheets. They're top of the charts for a reason. Now, the first 10 game weeks hasn't been brilliant for Arsenal. Could you argue they've been a bit unlucky? Yeah, their actual underlying data is not the best, but it's not as bad as it looks. And they're about to keep a huge run of clean sheets. With the fixtures in mind, with the defensive data from a much bigger sample size last season than the 10, 11 game weeks of this season, I think we can still pick double Arsenal defence. So actually, if I was on Wildcard, Gabriel's in, but let's drop Raya in as well. He's a cheap route to the Arsenal defence, guys. Like, you can spend more and get a Saliba, but I don't see the value there. Go for Raya. And you can also have a good backup in Fabianski. Like we have, we don't know if Fabianski is always going to be in the team, but there's an opportunity there that at times he will be in the 11. And him and Areola will be very much form dependent, probably over the season. So Fabianski gives you that cheap option. So Fabianski and Raya would be my top 2 goalkeepers. We'll talk more about the defenders later. Let's move on to the midfielders I feel like I need or I really want, okay? Now, there are a fair few midfielders I want and can't squeeze them in. Yeah, really annoying. Really annoying. I'll run through the ones that are under consideration and the ones that are definitely in. So guys, do hit that like button, by the way. And please subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Look, Palmer and Saka, they are eating up 2 of my spots. And I see them as like absolute must-haves on Wildcard. So I've only got 3 opportunities here. The way Mbeumo's been playing, it's very hard to drop him. I own him in my actual team. Maybe if I didn't own him, I'd have a little bit less bias there and go, I can go without Mbeumo because the fixtures aren't now the best. But Mbeumo still feels like a pick on Wildcard. He's been superb this season and I'd be very, very difficult to drop him. So let's put Mbeumo in. And then let's also put Rodgers in because Rodgers has been, I think, the best value midfielder in the game. Like he plays as a second striker for a well-functioning attack, for a top 6 attack, right? So I've got to go Rodgers. He's also a lot cheaper than some of the other good budget mids. We'll talk about them in a second. And then an interesting price point, just over 6 million. Neto. Bit wildcard here. Like, it is the wildcard draft. No one's going to have Neto. He's a proper differential. But he is Chelsea's definitely in their top 2 wingers at the moment. Probably their number 1 winger if you take a 4 or 5 game sample. From the last 4 or 5 games in all competitions, who's been their best wide man on either side? It's been Pedro Neto. So sure, he got his run in the team because he played really well in Europe. I think AEK Athens, he had a great game, and then he started in the Premier League. And then the game after that in the Premier League, Sancho couldn't play against Man United, so he took Sancho's spot for those 2 Premier League games. And I think that continues. I like the fact that he has a direct way of playing, and I think he's a Maresca-style winger. We know Maresca likes wingers to get on the ball, drive towards goal, and Madueke has done that, and that's why he was in the team, and Neto does that, and he also can get in behind a very high back line. Again, we saw that brilliant goal a few weeks back, a Jackson goal from that amazing Palmer pass to Neto. Sancho perhaps doesn't offer you that pure pace down the side. So, look, Neto's in, and I think he's just a fun punt. Every wildcard, you like to have one rogue differential. And because of his price point, it makes him an easy pick. Now, sure, I could go someone like Garnacho in this price point. I could go Semenyo and move down. And Semenyo and Garnacho are 2 players firmly on my mind. But I think Rodgers and Neto perhaps just edge it, But that's a coin toss. I really like both those players, Semenyo and Garnacho. Of course, we have to give a shout out to 2 other mids I love. I've owned Jota this season already. I don't have Mo Salah in this team. With Jota back fit after the international break, could I punt on him early, or is it a little bit too early? Maybe I need to see Jota minutes first. And obviously in the Champions League and stuff, we've seen Luis Diaz playing number 9, and I do wonder if Jota is a set and forget in the Liverpool starting 11. I think he was at the start of the season, but maybe that doesn't continue with other players doing well in the 9. So too risky in terms of his ex-mins, Jota. But Bruno's not risky. And under the new manager, you expect Bruno to absolutely fly. I don't see Bruno as a premium. Over 8 million, though, he's so expensive. I can't have Haaland, Palmer, Saka and Bruno. You could argue I could take Gabriel down to a cheap defender and then squeeze Bruno in instead of a Neto, and that would be an option for this team too. So look, that's the midfielders, and Mbemo, Neto, Rodgers, Palmer and Saka. You might be listening to this on podcast, by the way. If you are, thanks for checking out the pods. All my YouTube videos are also in pod format, so do check that out, guys. Yeah, not many know that. Search it on iTunes, Spotify, all that jazz. Defenders. After Gabriel, we don't have much to spend, but what we do have is lots of good 4.5-ish million defenders. Now, we don't have to go down to the 4 million category. And I look at it and go, between 4.3 and 4.5, there's a ton of good defenders. I'm going to just start with one that's a little bit more than that, but I think worth it for the upside. Because his fixtures, we saw the ticker from Scout. Wolves have got a great run. We're going to come back to forwards, by the way. Aït-Nouri. I'm going to put him in. He plays like a wide forward often if they play a 5. If they play a 4, he's still attacking at left back. We've seen goals recently. I think he's an easy pick on Wildcard. Then we go to probably the most underrated defence in the league. I made sure I covered Nottingham Forest on my Game Week 6 Wildcard because I just backed the manager. I just backed Nuno. We saw it at Wolves. He kept loads of clean sheets. We're seeing it now at Forest. Hey, we even saw it at Spurs. Milenkovic has got goal threat. He's had a couple of big chances, and actually, in terms of underperformance, he's ranked really highly in the Premier League of those that haven't hit their XG. He should have scored a couple of goals. The likes of Bruno and Eze, we all know about, they've been underperforming their XG. Milenkovic too, because he's such a threat at set pieces. And Forest are good at getting set pieces, and they're good at taking them as well. Both Milenkovic and Wood are going to benefit from set piece goals this season. Mark my words, I think he's the best option in the Forest defence. I own Matt Sells, of course, in my FPL team. I'm glad to cover that Forest defence, even when the fixtures are tough. I think they'll keep clean sheets. They kept a clean sheet at Anfield, by the way. Now I'm not... The other two that make it in, the budget defenders, and then I'm like, oh, I just need 2 others. I think I would opt to Kirkes because he's doing well at left back. His chance creation's high, and I like Bournemouth for some underrated clean sheets again. A bit like Forest, I think they'll get them. So Kirkes is in, and he's had a price drop, like super cheap Kirkes, right? 4.4. And then Lewis Hall is 4.3, guys. This is just a money play. 4.3 million for Newcastle starting left back. He gets forward too. He's a midfielder by trade, and you can see that in his play. I think he will stay at left back all season, though. I like Lewis Hall very much, and I was gutted when Chelsea got rid. So Lewis Hall is in there. I don't have a Brighton defender. They're cheap, and they're right at the top of the ticker. And Kadioglu is playing at times out of position. I'm just not sure who's going to end up on that right-hand side. The right midfield slot for Brighton. You have Solly March, who's returning. You have Minter, you have Adingra, you have Kadioglu. What I'm really keen to know is Kadioglu a first choice 11 player when everyone's fit? i.e. if he's not playing right wing, is he still starting at left back? Is he starting at right back? He is a proper utility man. We've seen that in the past. I want to know if he's always in the 11. They spent 30 million on him. I expect he will always be in the 11. And Kadioglu would be a really good pick, I think, on Wildcard, if you're happy to take that minutes risk a little bit. So look, this team, before I do my forwards, let me tell you, leaves 0.1 in the bank, right, for my team value. That won't be everyone's team value, though, will it? So some people might have a little bit more to spend. Some people might have a little bit less. Regardless of how much you've got, you're not going to have much with this team to spend on your next 2 strikers. We've just spoken about Brighton. They're top of the ticker. Joao Pedro will return very, very soon. And Joao Pedro is Brighton's main man. We saw that at the start of the season. If he comes back in as Brighton's main man, I expect he does. You get the penalties, you get often 90 minutes, and you get goals, and he's super cheap, under 6 million there. I think he's the best sub 6 million forward. Of course, the likes of Evan Nilsson, Jimenez, Visser, they're all good options. You go up to a Chris Wood if you've got a few extra pennies. Strand Larson, there's loads of good budget forwards, which is why ideally I want to play a front 3. And actually Morgan Rogers will be on the bench a lot. Not overly comfortable with. And then alongside him, we're going to go Cunha. It's between the Wolves, lads. Is this just a fixtures play? Just like the reason for Aït-Nouri. I think Cunha's good. Recently in a 2-2 draw, Cunha still picked up bonus points when he only got an assist. That shows how good Cunha is in terms of his underlyings, how he's the main man at Wolves. He carries, he creates chances, he takes corners, he takes free kicks. We likely on pens. Yeah, Cunha's a good buy. So look, this is my wildcard team. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Even if you're not wildcarding, these are some of the players you might want to target. Stay tuned for another video tomorrow where I'll be dropping my early thoughts. Thanks, guys. Subscribe on the way out, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.